and the interior guys all being together, all getting that experience? Like, how does that parlay into this training camp?
Well, the experience is key, right? And I think that's part of it from last year, though, is going through some of those things together. First year starting for Getzky, first year starting for CRouts. I had a couple of injuries, so guys like Hunter Whiteneck got their first playing time and things of that nature. So I think those growing pains that we went through, they can't be in vain, right? They can't be in vain. We have to learn from those things, learn from the mistakes we made, and then kind of grow off the successes that we had too. And so I think that's really our focus all the way through spring ball was not just kind of covering guys up, dominating and moving the line of scrimmage and doing things to show that we can get back to our 22 form, right? And the success that we had up front as a unit in 22. And that was a focal point throughout the year. We obviously got some guys that have played a lot of football in the transfer portal that have been a huge asset to the team, into our unit. And so now you've got guys maybe that haven't played a lot together here, but they have played many years, started before in college football, and so that's huge in today's new portal world too. I mean, it's basically free agency, and those guys have played a lot of it, and that experience has helped, right? So we've got leadership that has come in, we've got leadership that has grown and developed here, and all of that has really helped us become a more mature unit going into the 24 season.
What have your conversations been with your room about the run game, given the healthy backs and an obvious desire to be able to move the ball on the ground?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a focal point of our team, and it always has been with the Brett Bielema coach team. Obviously, in my history too, that's what we've kind of focused on. We did in 21, we ran the ball pretty effectively with the 1,000-yard rusher with Chase, and then obviously 22, he was the nation's leading rusher for most of the year. Last year, obviously, we pushed the ball down the field a little bit more, but if you look at some of the efficiencies in the run game, we were averaging, I think it was over 60% efficiency on some of our front side zones, right? So there's some things there that we have success, and we can build upon those. And those, when you really analyze things, what were we the strongest at? What were we not very strong at, right? And then what kind of plays to the strengths of our team now, right? They're different players than Doug Kramer or Paltrow was, right? Josh is a different player. Getzky's a different guard than Isaiah is, right? But they have strengths and weaknesses. We got to play to their strengths. But that was a huge focal point, is getting a little bit more balance and swinging that pendulum back towards the middle like it was in 22. And then really pressing some of those things that we're good at, and obviously we have healthy backs, really talented backs that have also continued to grow. Right, Aiden and Caden were freshmen last year. Of course, they're a year better. Josh is healthy, right? So we got a stable of backs now that can go, and each one of them provides a different challenges for defense, right? And then obviously our guys coming in, right? A guy that has the experience of JC, Melvin, which is a tremendous asset for us. Even guys like Hunter and Des Schuster's healthy again. Watch Des walk a guy off the line. It's pretty impressive. So there's a lot of things that we can now play with, and we're starting to build that offense that way, back to what we originally set it out to do.
Bart, you just mentioned the guys in the portal. When you bring in a JC, a Melvin, and even like a Kevin Wigington, they've played a lot of ball other places. Is it different to integrate them in what you do, even though they kind of know what they're supposed to be doing in a basic sense? Yeah,
that's a good question. There are differences in technique, especially. Mindset, no, because we wouldn't bring them in if there was a difference in their mindset, right? If they're a guy that maybe doesn't like to play physical or is more a finesse type player, that we would not recruit them. So from a mindset, from a character standpoint, there's really not. They have to learn our vocabulary and some of our customs and things, but for the most part, it's a quick transition that way, right? And guys respect that. Guys respect guys that come with a purpose, that are tough, that are physical, that want to work. And that's kind of the DNA of our program, right? You hear that all the time from our program, is tough, smart, dependable. So that's who we're looking after. From a technique standpoint, there's absolutely differences, right? And so we have to teach them some of our techniques, and they are different, right? I mean, that's some of our secrets, right? It's the way we come off the ball in combinations, the way we rule kind of our offenses and things. Having that experience, they kind of understand the language. It's just translating it, right? They're not trying to learn, right, the whole, like football. Right? You get a freshman coming in, maybe he doesn't have that breadth of experience. Like run right and what we call inside zone and all this different stuff with formations and personnel and things of that nature, defensive awareness, that's a lot more for a freshman than it is a returning starter from a different conference that just has to learn what that means, right? So what that play call means, right? So that provides a tremendous amount of kind of experience and depth in the room, but also some leadership and some new ideas too, like kind of an influx of, hey, we did this here at this deal, or they kind of learn why we do certain things and the reason we've had success and maybe they haven't at other places.
Why was Melvin able to come in and make the impact he has as quickly as he has?
In short answer, his physicality. He's a very violent player. The way he uses his hands, he's very sudden, very explosive, and he plays with an edge, and that's going to give anybody kind of an advantage or an edge when they're playing at this level, right? And now the thing that we've had to work with him about is kind of the fine tune, is the technique, is the development of his footwork. He did a good job of learning the offense, so that's not a problem. But just learning how to do some things from a technique standpoint, and the fundamentals is what we've really worked on. And he's made a huge step from spring to now, and that's been exciting to see. But you guys come in with that edge, come in with that physicality. They're going to have some success early.
And another follow, like he had the penalties a year ago. So what's important for you guys to kind of coach those out of him, I guess, for lack of a better phrase?
More pull the reins back a little bit on that. Like I don't want him to ever lose his edge, right? And sometimes you have to flirt with that line. I'm not saying go get a penalty, but at the same time they have to play with that edge. But he's got to be able to help the team, or we can't put the team in bad situations. So a lot of it is just maybe hand placement. Instead of getting wide, his hands are inside, right? Or maybe he stopped his feet initially on a scramble, right? So continue to move his feet so he doesn't get called for the grab or the hold as the defensive guy disengages, right? So there's just a bunch of different little things like that. But I don't ever want to take the edge away from him, right? And now we just can't hurt the team in those situations. So coaching that part out of him, the maturity piece of it, right? And the composure piece, right? When there's going to be adversity, there's going to be times where you fail, there's going to be times where things go wrong, and you have to be able to put it behind you and react and play the next play and work with your guys to make sure that doesn't happen again.
What's that too deep competition like right now? Because it feels like you kind of know the starters, but that feels like the depth has improved and there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition. We got 21 guys in the room right now, and right now we're trying to find our best 10, and I'd say there's a fair number that could certainly compete for one of those spots, right? And that's been the fun part. We've only had 4 practices, so we're not ready to do anything depth-wise, but there are guys that have really impressed, and guys that will be moving around, guys that will be climbing up the depth chart, guys that we can trust in the game now, which is, we've always needed multiple guys, right? I mean, that's just part of college football, especially in the Big Ten Conference. We're always going to need 7 or 8 guys to play at some point, whether it's hey, my knee brace broke this play and I'm out for a play, or something a little bit more substantial. So you're always going to need that, and I feel like we're developing that right now. The depth, the first time we've really had true depth. I mean, we've had some really good players come through, don't get me wrong, but to have a group of 10 guys that we trust in the game is kind of rare in college football. And it's not just with us, it's anybody, right? And I feel like we're developing some really good depth, so it's exciting to see, and I'm excited to see the next week of practice and how they can respond after the first 3 initial days, and we can continue to put some consistency together there.
Is another way of saying that, is this the first camp where you felt like the position battles are more about, let's say, 6 through 10 for that depth chart as opposed to maybe 3 through 6?
Not necessarily. I think maybe in the outside looking in, you could probably say that, and even maybe, deep down, I could think, okay, well, we're pretty locked in at left tackle, we're pretty locked in here at left guard, but they're a play away too, right? I mean, you're a play away from that whole thing getting messed up, right? And so being able to say who would be next up, or even pushing some guys, right? Like if somebody's game falls off, I mean, our job is to win football games. Our job is to put the best 5 out there. So whether you're a returning starter or not, that does count for something, but you also have to continue with that consistency and continue to push each other, right? And so I think that's what this is allowing us to do, is guys pushing each other, and it helps our first team go, right? I mean, if you got a guy that's played a lot but he's not performing, then we're going to put the best guy in, right? And the best 5 will play. So it does provide depth, but it also continues to provide competition, which I think is really, really important, and something that a lot of units don't have.
Bart, is there something to Zai's emotion and just kind of pep in his step that I saw in the spring and maybe early in this camp, being back at guard and having prior success there, and knowing I was pretty good in 22 at guard and at the end of 23 at guard?
Yeah, I think he's more comfortable on the inside. I think there's less pressure for maybe being on an island for him, on a skill set that he really hasn't done a lot of in the collegiate level. So I think that makes him feel a little bit better. I think obviously he knows this is his last go around, right? And we have been through a lot together. Him and we've been through a lot together with this line. I mean, he's a 3rd-year player. He's been removed. He's been pulled out of the game. He's started. He's He's been hurt. He's responded, right? He's had failures, and then he's moved inside and had successes, right? So he's been through that wide range of things, and I think just as a mature player, as a more experienced player, he's a guy that's been voted to our leadership council. I think you're starting to see really Zai's personality come out and how really good of a guy he is, how high character he is, how much it really matters to him, and how he knows he's got to continue to get better because some of the inconsistencies that we've had aren't going to be good enough.
Josh talked about wanting to get the running backs to just use the holes that are created as opposed to, I guess, having to try and find them. What's that conversation about, and what could that do to take pressure a little bit off the running backs and just use what's right there?
Well, that's kind of our MO from the get-go, right? I know there are times last year where that didn't necessarily seem apparent, but the way we fit things, the way we rule things, our techniques and what we teach, we are trying to create the hole in the run game, right? And especially in our zone game, right? And that's where our combinations come through. That's where some of our IDs come through. We are trying to create the hole for the back to hit. Obviously, you'll see cutbacks, you'll see things that defenses take away, but I think that's just a mentality up front of changing the line of scrimmage, trying to move the line of scrimmage, open running lanes, and getting vertical movement. And I think a lot of guys talk that, a lot of guys say that. I think you could probably all 130 teams, and every old line coach is going to say the same thing, but you turn on the film, how many is actually doing that, right? And I think that's a big focus point for us is being able to create that movement and give the back some room to run.
Or how does Crouts' approach, and I guess tenacity probably, trickle throughout your room?
Well, he's very poised. As intense as he plays, as fierce as he plays, he's very intelligent and very aware of kind of what's going on. I mean, he's kind of grown up obviously around the game, but he's a student of the game, right? He studies not only himself, but he studies his defense, he studies his opponents, he studies the guards and how they take their steps and what can help them make this combination better. So he's always been a very high football IQ guy. Now what's been exciting for me in the last 6 months with Crouts is the development he's taken from a physical standpoint, right? And he proved last year he can play in this conference. His mission now is to prove that he can be one of the best and dominate in this conference. And I think that's been a focal point for the way he's trained throughout, really since the season ended, and it has trickled over to the rest of the unit because they see that, right? They see a guy that, is undersized, but he's fierce and he's smart and he's had success for a reason. And then he does everything right. And so he's also, again, a guy that's one of the alphas, and they're certainly the alpha and the leader of our room, but not only our room, but the offense. And so when you have a guy that practices like that trains like that, and whether it's in the weight room or the meeting room, the way he prepares, people take notice and they'll follow that. They'll follow a guy. That's what a leader's about. And Crouts is a guy that demands a lot of people, but he's also not a guy, he's not a tyrant, right? He's not instead of being mean to a younger guy, he's going to show them what the expectation is, right? And that's when you have a true leader. And so that's the things he's shown. I think that's why guys are following him, and that's why he's been an asset to our room.
Brandon's got a lot of talent, versatility. What's his value, and how has he progressed through the last year of being
Brandon Henderson?
Yeah, Brandon Henderson.
Yeah, so the biggest thing with him, he kind of flashed early as a freshman and got some playing time last year, right? And did some things with us, traveled and everything. And like most freshmen do, there's a little bit of a plateau, right, that they have to go through. And then we kind of dealt with that a little bit and just being transparent in the offseason and the spring. And then he's had a great camp. And so you've seen him kind of mature. You've seen him find a role, compete for a starting job, still competing for a starting job, but setting himself up for future success when we got guys like JC's a senior and moving on and things of that nature. So he allows it, whatever's going to get him on the field the fastest, and he does have the versatility to play tackle and guard, which is exciting because now we can plug and play him wherever we need to. And he's really taken it upon himself to kind of see the things aren't just going to be given to me. I have to go earn them, right? And I think he saw the success. A former teammate of his, right? Melvin Preseason comes in and has some success, and those two together have been great. And he's starting to feel that confidence that he had initially when he came in. And I think that's great for any young player. Is going. You're going to get hit in the face when you play college football. As good as you are, there's going to be growing pains, and for him to come through that and continue to develop and have the maturity to regain his composure, regain his confidence, and show what he really can do has been awesome to see this fall camp. So I'm excited to see where we can do this fall with him because he's special.
Josh talked today about running the ball when the defense knows you're going to run the ball, but what can tip the scales maybe enough in the offensive line's favor, maybe in that that matchup?
Just about everything really. The mentality probably is the number one. The mentality is number one. Knowing you're going to win, right? And that team across from you might be a 12-0 team, might be a national champion team or whatever. But the way you do things, the way you train, the way you practice, the way you block a certain scheme, the techniques that you take, what the focal point is at practice, the way those. I mean, that's what sets teams apart, right? Every team has the same amount of time. Every team has the same, right, schemes basically, right? Everybody's going to run certain plays, zones and gaps, and drop back passes and things of that nature. What sets people apart is the severity of which they train, right? And I mean that from a mental standpoint. I mean that from a physical standpoint, right? Can they execute when everything's on the line? Can they take the proper steps? Can they play with the proper pad level? Can they generate that movement? Can they have some awareness to see, right, defensive line movement or pressures or whatever it is, right? So now all that comes from their preparation, and so I think that's a huge advantage that we can take, other teams can take. And then the mentality combined with that, and you should have a pretty dominant line when you combine those two things.
Bart, can you talk about why you multi-train guys? Where I look at a Brandon Henderson, where he may have come in here thinking, I'm a tackle, and then by the time you got with him, he's able to go to Maryland and have a lot of success as a starter at guard in that game. And what goes into that? And just is it a mentality thing? Do you have to change with those guys that you're an offensive lineman and you're not just a pigeonhole tackle or pigeonhole center?
Yeah, that's a great question because it differs from player to player, right? There's some guys that are only tackle. Magnus Muller is only a tackle, right? And it's the way he moves, it's his length, it's his height. There's a lot of things that go into that, right? Some of it is football IQ. No, that's not saying no. Magnus is one of the smartest guys on our team, but it's can he handle that, right? Can he handle the switch to the left side or a different position, right? Is he smart enough to compartmentalize those two things, right? Is he athletic enough to do that, right? I mean, that's a different skill set, right? Sometimes it's a kind of an opponent thing we've seen, right? Like, hey, we need to put Brandon on this guy, right? Or we need to put Isaiah on this guy or whatever it is, right? So there's some different things that you look at, but a lot of it comes down to trying to get him on the field fastest, right? So, hey, we're pretty locked in at this position. He has the versatility to move over here, get him a chance to play quicker, and he puts us as one of our best five, right? So the cross train, I think, helps. It also allows you, if there is an injury, if there is some type of shuffle that needs to happen, to put your best five on the field, right, at that particular moment. And so that's always something we've kind of done with guys that can handle that.
Sure.
Some guys can't, right? But some guys can, and we want to try to get that. And also impresses and increases their value at the next level, right? And I think that's a big selling point for most guys. Is like, hey, if you can play, tackle and guard, now you become that much more valuable at the next level, right? They'll pay you, they might pay you at this amount, and then they only need one guy, right? As opposed to going to pay another $6 million for somebody else, right? So that just increases the value at the next level and makes them a better football player.